Test 1, 2. Hey gang, sorry for the great delay today. I had all number of technical issues and they're still not completely worked out, but I'm going to go ahead and start. Anyway, hello, my name is Dan Nelson. Maybe you know that. And this is Dan's Art Adventure number 29. Woohoo! Crawling my way back up to 1,000. That'll take a while at this rate. Title is One Way to Start Portraits. All right. So I have this wonderful, hello uncle, good to see you. I have this delightful baby, and I took the photograph and printed it out the right size in Photoshop on my printer, and then discovered I wanted, the baby was leaning over pretty far, so I straightened him up a little bit. Took this picture, taped it to a nice stiff piece of mat board, and what I want to show you is the technique that I'm using. I use many different techniques. In fact, last fall, I think, I taught a class at Art of the Carolinas called Portrait Painting, or Portraits for the Rest of Us. Those of us who are not freaking geniuses, you know who you are. Those of us who are not that have to use different techniques to nail down a perfect likeness. So this is just one of those techniques. This is not the way I normally start. The reason I can do it this time is partly because this printout is functioning as my rough sketch, or as my, so I've already worked out, you know, the position of the baby and so on the canvas. So I can go straight ahead to a technical means. So let me zoom in again here. I hope you can see this all right. In fact, hang on, let me move you a little bit closer. Maybe you can see it better. All right, I think you can see some. I've been working on it just for a few minutes. And what I did is essentially put a grid, real simple, not D. This is not a grid technique. These are just superstructure guidelines. 2 vertical and 3 horizontal. And then I did the same thing on the canvas. 2 vertical, 3 horizontal, measuring very carefully and so on, as you can imagine. Right? So these lines just give me more places to measure from. So again, let me back up a little bit so I have a little bit of room to work here and show you how this works. So I'm using plain old-fashioned divider, caliper, compass, all of those words. Some of those words work. Let's say, for instance, I want to find, let me find something I haven't done already. Okay, the outermost point on his cheek, the most southeast point. So I put a dot there, and I'm going to measure. I have to make 2 measurements. There's one. And I have to be careful that I'm holding, you know, I can't hold this at an angle, right? I have to be careful that I'm perfectly vertical. There's the other measurement. All right. So now I've drawn a dot right there that is in exactly the same location as this dot here. Okay, and I, of course, leave that dot there because that will become important as I continue. As you can see, this is a very fastidious, fussy, technical, this is not art by the seat of your pants kind of stuff. Now I'm going to do a very particular trick right here. I'm going to line up this ruler very carefully right through the middle. If I'm off on this, it'll have dreadful consequences. But I'm going to draw a line right through the middle of of the baby's pupil. And now that I did that, the pencil was not close enough to the ruler, so I'm going to use the bottom line. I just drew two lines. The top one is erroneous. By this way, sometimes you can draw an X through the one that's the mistake, so you don't get confused. All right. And then back to the divider compass. And I transfer that measurement. Whoops. Hang on, let me go back and get it because I just jerked my compass, jerked my divider. Okay, so right there. And back over here. And that measurement there. Okay, now this is important that I don't miss this one. This line that I'm about to draw is particularly helpful and useful, not only for getting the exact location and position of the pupils, but for giving me the most precise indication of the tilt of the head. Okay, so that line throughout the whole process will be quite important. And then it's really simple. I measure how far from this guideline to that pupil. Now, some of you might be saying, well, why do you need that fancy tool? Why don't you just use a ruler? Well, of course you can. My head's right anyway. I know, forgive me. So I can hold this up here and I can say, okay, that's almost exactly 1 3/4 inches. But I'm not going to use that. Do you know why? Number one, it's the almost. That'll really get you. Okay, while I'm talking about things I don't do, why don't I use one of these nifty proportional dividers? Well, I can. But just look, you can't see that closely enough, but the points of these are not sharp. I can't skewer myself, thank goodness, because it's dull, because it's plastic. I am not going to do the same thing on this. Why? Because it's sharp as heck. In other words, imprecise, precise. Imprecise, and plus you have to say a whole bunch of numbers. 1 15/16 and a scrunch. Do you understand? So that's why, yeah, you can use a ruler, sure. Sure, you can use one of these plastic things, sure. Nah, this is a lot more accurate. Now I'll show you one tool that's even more precise than this, and that is a real compass. Now this one has a very sharp ink pen on the end here, so it's not a piece of pencil lead like most of the compasses you have used have a needle at one end and a pencil at the other. That would not be very good because the pencil lead is too imprecise, but this is very precise. Okay, so this tool I'll show it just to you, just while we're going through this stuff. This is even more precise. Why? Because it's super fine-tuned right here. Okay, so I know I'm probably giving you more information than you need, but there you go. So that is exact. Not only that, once it's set, as long as I don't touch that wheel, that measurement is locked in, right? So there's the absolute center of that iris. And I do use this sometimes, by the way. I may use it later in this project, but most of the time, this device is good enough. All right, let's get the other pupil marked. Right there. Now, let's zoom in for a bit. And by the way, for some reason, my old iPad no longer functions. It doesn't show chats. And the old iPads my old iPad is so old. Hang on. Oh, okay, the corner of the eye. It was actually my wife's, and I inherited it from her. My iPad is so old that it no longer functions, with the world of the internet, YouTube as it exists. So you may be happy to know, you regulars, that I just ordered a new iPad about an hour ago. So we'll get that taken care of. So I'm sorry I am missing your chats. I look forward to reading them later. That is terrible. More than half the fun of me doing these broadcasts is me chatting with you. So I feel really bad about that. Now, so you saw me measuring there, and as you know, then I transferred those measurements over here. Nice shot of the back of my head. I know. Let me give you just a little bit of background, and I'm not going to do too much of this because this is just too boring. Once you've seen how I did it, you get the idea, and I don't need to bore you to tears. But I will give you a little bit of broader perspective. If you want to see someone else who uses this technique, I believe, all the time, look up Mark Carder. We've talked about him a whole bunch on this website, C-A-R-D, as in dog, Carder. And a very droll, nice fellow. I told one of my friends once, I said, Mark Carder is a rather droll fellow. My friend said, oh, I don't think so. And then I realized that my friend is a rather droll fellow. So, anyway, there's not a lot of humor on Mark Carter's, not a lot of silliness. So if you get tired of my silliness, get yourself over to Mark Carter's YouTube channel, and you'll not have any of this silliness that you're liable to get. Anyway, Mark Carter, and he demonstrates how to do this. As you can see, and I just dropped an earplug so I can't hear even myself anymore. As you can see, it's very fussy, very OCD, and I have touches of I try to draw the line at D, obsessive compulsive, but not so bad as to qualify as a disorder. But I'm a pretty orderly kind of guy. So this technique does in fact work quite well for my personality type sometimes. But this is not the way I normally do it. But okay, I'll just tell you what's happening next. Let me do just a couple more while before I quit here. What do I need? Oh, sure, the outside apex of the curve of his ear, the point where it's farthest away from his head. How about the bottom of his nose? Yeah, that's a good one. And that time I used the line, the eye line that I just drew a minute ago. Let's do the outside of his nostril. Oh, I forgot to tell you, you saw it, but I drew the grid, and then I also drew an X right through the face. I hope you could see that. I just failed to mention it earlier. I'm going to do something slightly different. I'm going to go with the width of his nostrils, and I'm just going to use the lines, the diagonal, to get the general position. Anyway, so as you can see, it's very fussy, and it's going to take a long time. The next step in this process is, after I've got all these lines, I'll draw it out in pencil. So that's, for those of you who know me, this is kind of at the OCD end of my spectrum. Today I'm on the spectrum. I will draw it again with a fairly small brush, like maybe Number 2, Silver Grand Prix, number 2. That's what I mean by small brush. I do not mean, in other words, I don't mean something like this, okay? But I'll draw it with very watered down with liquid oil paint, okay? And with that brown paint, I'll begin doing a little bit of shading, and that'll get me started. So hopefully I'll be doing another broadcast soon, and hopefully I'll be doing more broadcasts in the near future because I'm getting a new iPad. This has been a real pain that I haven't been able to see your chat. And I'm all done with my great big church job. I will be editing some really nice video about that in the weeks to come, and I'll upload that here. So thanks for joining me. I'm not going to rattle on forever on this one like I normally do. Dan the Art Man, rattle on forever. This is me.